Is Opalite actually a good quality product, or are we being sold on Opalite as an audience member every bit as much as the characters in the music video are? Something Taylor said in the behind the scenes Opalite extended versions had me really asking this question. I tried to add clips of the behind the scenes video here, but it ended up getting blocked because of copyright. So unfortunately, I'm only going to be able to describe it, and you're going to have to watch the scenes yourself. I'm sorry. So first she says that the song Opalite kind of sounds like a commercial, which I agree. The music for the song Opalite is extremely upbeat, and it has an I can do it with a broken heart quality to it of making this song that isn't necessarily about something super inherently happy if you actually pay attention to the lyrics, but putting the sound of it to something very upbeat and happy sounding to almost just trick you into feeling good about it. So, as Taylor is describing the idea for Opalite to be this magical product, the editors cut to Nopalite as if that's what she's describing in that moment. And that seemed odd to me. And then right after that, Taylor, in character, in costume, is describing the idea that Nopalite is for people who choose to be unhealed, and Opalite is for people who choose a better path for themselves. But that means that almost everybody is choosing to be unhealed because Nopalite is the number 2 bestseller, supposedly right behind Opalite. It made me revisit the lyrics and the concept of the song Opalite as a whole because it was pretty contradictory, as Taylor loves to be. The very nature of the gem opalite is the fact that it is a fake opal. It is a glass version of a gem that looks kind of like a real gem, which is opal. Opal can be synthetic and man made, but even still, synthetic opal is not the same as opalite. Opal will always be far more valuable than opalite. And a lot of times people can be tricked into purchasing something that they think is opal, but is actually a far less valuable gem and essentially just glass, which is opalite. And that's not to say that opalite doesn't have its own purposes or properties and isn't beautiful in its own right. It's just not the same as opal and is well known to be kind of viewed as the cheaper version of opal. So to call something opalite wouldn't necessarily be a compliment. I wouldn't call something that was like this really great healing thing Opalite. Actually, look at the lyrics. You have things like her saying she used to eat out of the trash, which I also find it interesting that although the music doesn't start directly at the beginning of the music video when they're talking about the trash, the first verse is about the trash, and then the first thing we see in the music video is the advertisement about the woman who continues to be with the trash and then uses opalite to change the trash into something better on the surface. But we learn at the end that trash is still trash or garbage is still garbage. And the opalite didn't actually change the garbage itself. We don't know if the garbage ended up using nopalite and reverting itself back, but we do know the stapler did, and the stapler used the nopalite. And although the stapler still had its problems, so the opalite did not get rid of the stapler's toxic problems, the stapler who used the nopalite did end up going to therapy at least and trying to work on their problems that were not resolved by the opalite only after they used the nopalite. So again, kind of contradicting what that version of Taylor in the behind the scenes, but she was in costume, so it's the version of Taylor from within the music video was saying that the nopalite is for people who choose not to be healed. Meanwhile, the one character we saw from the music video that chose to use the nopalite is the only one actually working on themselves and going to therapy. And garbage, which was using the opalite, is still garbage. Looking at the lyrics of the chorus, we have, and it's all right, you were dancing through the lightning strikes, sleepless in the onyx night, but now the sky is opalite. Here, opalite isn't necessarily being used again as a compliment. Honestly, onyx is the much more preferable stone between opalite and onyx. Onyx being a protective and grounding stone. But we've also heard Taylor talk about sleeping so long in a 20-year dark night. Now I see daylight. And if the dark night was to protect her, for protection and for grounding. And maybe she did not even have control over the length of the dark night, so she was sleepless about it, which also ties us into Midnights. So sleepless through that dark night where we had to go through the dark night where we were protected but still in the dark and sleepless. But now we through that dark night, we were dancing through lightning strikes. And now the sky is opalite, but now the sky is opalite. And that's okay. You couldn't avoid the fact that the sky became opalite because you were stuck dancing through the lightning strikes. You had to make your own sunshine in this onyx night, this 20-year dark night. So now the sky is opalite. Again, not even necessarily a compliment, more so explaining why the sky is opalite, which is this purchased, manufactured beauty, different than something that's found naturally and not as valuable, but it looks nice. And that's exactly the premise of the Opalite product. It's the way that the lyrics in the song go. And it's also the idea of the Opalite gem, which all of that paralleling and connecting with the song Bejeweled is also fascinating. Then in the bridge, it further adds to the idea that currently, right now, while the sky is opalite, that's not necessarily a good thing. Because she says, but now the sky is opalite. This is just a storm inside a teacup. So she's saying the opalite sky is a storm inside a teacup. But shelter here with me, my love. This life will beat you up. This is just a temporary speed bump. So again, the sky being opalite is a temporary speed bump. But failure brings you freedom, and I can bring you love. Again, calling the state of the sky being opalite as a failure, because this is currently right now. Now the sky is opalite. This is just a storm inside a teacup. This is just a temporary speed bump. Failure brings you freedom, and I can bring you love. Whereas in the past, you were dancing through the lightning strikes. You were dancing through the lightning strikes, sleepless in the onyx night. That's before. So it's actually now that the sky is opalite is the more problematic time when we're in a storm. But she's saying, it's okay. This is just a storm inside a teacup. This brings me back to the idea of the karma coffee cup or the karma teacup, and that while this is a storm, she knows karma is on her side. So it's all contained within the karma teacup. It's just a temporary speed bump, and she knows ultimately it's going to work out in her favor. It also adds to the idea of the sky currently only being opalite because you were dancing through lightning strikes, because lightning struck and you needed to avoid the lightning strikes. So you were not able to have the full daylight like you wanted to. Sleepless in a 20-year dark night. Now I see daylight. You couldn't get to that daylight that you wanted to because you were avoiding lightning strikes. So now the sky is opalite. But it's okay. This is just a temporary speed bump. It's just a storm inside a teacup. I think so much of this has to do with the Masters heist and the pivot of the Lover era, and how that version of Daylight, she wasn't able to come out as directly as she wanted to. So she's had to have this plan become something different. And we've all talked about how, although I enjoy this era and the showgirl era, there are many complaints about it, and the fact that she is leaning so heavily into the take capitalist nature of it. And in that way, it feels a lot like the Opalite infomercial and the idea of Opalite and this very manufactured beauty, this manufactured success and happiness. And that is kind of how this era feels as a whole. And I think this song speaks to why this era feels as if the sky is opalite, that cheaper quality, not quite the real thing, but still pretty on the surface, semi-precious stone of opalite. She wasn't able to execute her plan the way that she wanted to during the Lover era because of the Masters heist. So, since then, she's had to lean into this stay capitalist, make the sky opalite, and have this artificial prettiness or manufactured sunshine to them. But it's okay because karma will eventually come back around. This is just a storm inside a teacup. And that failure will bring her freedom. And a similar message is conveyed in the music video where her character is trying to make connections without the opalite. At first, she gets given the ad for the opalite and she turns off the TV. She doesn't want it. And then she tries to make a genuine connection with The Rock and goes out to the karaoke bar and gets asked to leave. And so eventually she decides, okay, I can't continue this relationship with this rock. I have to use the opalite. And I think here we can think of her deciding to finally use the opalite as like making the deal with the capitalistic devil, deciding to pivot the Miss Americana documentary and deciding to pivot her brand away from being more forthright about her political beliefs and instead leaning more into the capitalism and making it to be the very, very top star, winning the dance competition or the Bejeweled pageant as well. So, to answer my question that I posed at the beginning of this music video of whether or not Opalite is actually a good product, I think the answer is a little bit nuanced. I think that it is a product made by the machine. I mean, we get given the ad at the very beginning. So it's being sold to us and it is giving us this artificial pleasantness, this artificial sunshine, man made sunshine. However, she did end up using it, even though it wasn't necessarily what she wanted to use originally. She used it and ended up finding this male counterpart in the world of the opalite sky. And I don't necessarily look as the male counterpart as a muse. I view it as a performance artler, as her finding the other half of herself, the more masculine half of herself. But so that's what I think this music video speaks a lot to, is this idea of she had to end up signing the deal with this devil, using the opalite, the manufactured product, but within it and within the opalite sky, she found something real and of real value. And ultimately, the failure of her original plan is going to bring her freedom. This has definitely been one of my longer videos, so if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you're following along because I know I'm going to have more to say about this, as well as whatever crazy thing I know she's inevitably going to do next.